Hello world, welcome to Decode or Not to Code. I'm Millie Eva. I'm really happy to be here today with you. And I'm here with my partner in crime, Stefan. How are you doing today, Stefan?
I'm doing great. It's C# and .NET time.
It is indeed. And we've got a great episode for you today. We're going to be talking about using directives in C Sharp. But before we get into that, let's have a look at the news in the tech world, our newsflash section of the stream. What is new? What have you
Uh,
got for
s-
us?
I'm sorry. I distracted myself with people saying hi.
Oh, hello. Thank you so much for joining our stream today. Thank you so much for watching and being here and coding with us.
Yes, but now to the news section. So a couple of days ago, well, in 2 streams ago, we talked about the initial release of the .NET 8
Yes.
Preview 1, and now obviously a month has passed, and we are now in Preview 2. And there is a lot of great additions. I think this release is mainly focused on web and Blazor,
Mhm.
also improving performance and making me quite, what's the word? Looking forward to November when .NET
Yes.
8 will be finally
Excited
released.
about November. November will be an exciting month for the stream as well, I think. But yeah, not just because .NET 8.
Another news item that I personally find also quite intriguing is that the Polyglot notebooks, which is a Visual Studio Code extension with which you can write and run code from Visual Studio Code directly, is now generally available. It was in preview for some time now. So what you can do is writing code in multiple languages, then basically
Cool.
run it directly from the editor and also share variables between languages, which is quite exciting. I will be using this for demos at conferences, I presume. Actually, let me put in the links in the in the chat as well. If you would like to follow and read up later on. And the third and last item is that Stephen Tobe has written, I'm not sure if this accounts for a blog post still, a very detailed article about how async await and the state machine behind really works.
Hmm.
And we will be using async await, which is a C# feature, where we can write basically with this little async and the await keyword here, turn our method into this state machine, which does a lot of heavy lifting for asynchronous computation. We will definitely have a look at this, how this works, in a future episode.
Hmm. I think that was one of the first things you taught me about like coding is sort of like if it's a wait, I have to put a task because I kept void for the whole for most of the time in my first couple of coding attempts.
Yeah, that
So yeah,
that that does sound like me.
yeah. Well, you were right. I mean, go on.
So what's next?
What is next, indeed?
Looking also
um,
at the cheat sheet. Yes.
yes. Yeah, so also I think was it last episode? Yes, we sort of compared a couple of unit test frameworks and we couldn't really decide which one would be best for our current project. So we decided to ask you guys, and quite a lot of you participated. So thank you so much for helping us choose. It was a clear win for XUnit. Not just on Twitter, but also on LinkedIn, I think.
Yeah.
Um, we had, yeah, yes, a clear win for XUnit. So that's what we'll be using today and if for the project in general.
I think we had 29 votes across Twitter and LinkedIn overall, and I also talked to some people about why XUnit.
Hmm.
It seems that the default of XUnit sounds more right or more modern in these days than the other frameworks. You can still do you can do everything with all the frameworks, but it seems that the defaults are more like the current how the code is written today in general. As a fact, we did. This is a bit of a picture from our last episode where we have written a Shakespeare store and tested it with both, with all three XUnit, NUnit, and MS Test. And basically, here is a little tweet of a comparison. If you would like to, can I share this tweet? Yes. If you want to have a look
Nice.
at how the same thing looks in the different frameworks.
Yes. And I also asked, I couldn't make up my mind. I asked ChatGPT, and it also said XUnit would be best for the same reason that you just mentioned. But so maybe that's what everybody else did as well, mate.
Okay. So
I
did
think that's just
everybody
the thing to do this month, or like this.
to ask ChatGPT?
Yes. I think I'm asking you for literally anything, like whether it's coding stuff or just like general life advice, birthday cards mostly, all of that. Emails, very good for emails if you don't know how to sort of write your emails.
That is my favorite task, I guess, writing emails.
Yes.
Not.
My favorite task of the day. This is also like it really like that there was a couple of first emails when you first start your workday and you haven't quite sort of you're still at your first cup of coffee, so your mood is really really low, and then you get some annoying emails and you just respond instantly and don't think about it too much. Like ask ChatGPT first, and your emails, your first coffee of the day emails will sound a lot better. I promise.
It
Trialed and
does,
tested.
it does sound like you're speaking out of experience.
I do. I'm a coffee addict.
But today our code will be handcrafted.
Yes.
And well, mostly. Maybe we have some .NET analyzers and some .NET refactorings in place, but there will be no AI. This will be all deterministic with what we do today.
And live.
And live,
Which is
yes. So what I did off screen from last episode is we have a look here at GitHub Desktop, the tool I'm using to commit code and review changes. Basically removed all the, for example, the NUnit test project and our XUnit tests and so on, because now we start with the new one. So let's open a new terminal. Let's create our new project. So let's jump to the source directory. Let's jump to the tests directory. And in there, it's empty. So let's create ourselves a new XUnit project.
Yes.
Perhaps a connection from the very first episode. If we do .NET new --help, we have not --help, sorry, .NET new list. We get an overview of all the available templates that come in box with the .NET SDK, but also those you may have installed with additional, you can install via NuGet additional template packs. And yeah, what we have here is the XUnit test project. So we type XUnit, .NET new XUnit. Let's also ask for help here. So we can specify a name, and we can also specify the framework. We will start with .NET 6 because this is what we started the project under test with. Later on, we definitely do multi-target in .NET 7 and also
.NET 8.
Yeah, excellent. Yes. So .NET XUnit -- name. So we will be testing our core library. So this will be this unit tests and -f for framework .NET 6.0. And now we need to add it to the solution. So let's go back. Oops, cd source. There's the solution. So .NET SLN. Add, I believe, and then add the path. So this will be tests, unit tests, CS project. Has been added. Okay, let's have a look how this looks. So we can go to open in Visual Studio Code. Let's zoom in. I still don't want to install the German pack, and we're missing something that we can execute. All right. Test project, it's here and it's in the solution as well. There it is. So I will invite you to the live share session.
Yay!
Link incoming.
Thank you.
Oops. Let's have a look at the cheat sheet. Yes.
Yes, I mean, I suppose while I'm joining, you could also maybe, because I really like the way you showed the poll before, and this how you built that.
Yes.
Because
Totally forgot about it.
that was all Stefan. I was on vacation and he sort of built that, and I was like, this is so cool. Thank you so much for building that.
Well, it's actually it's like 20 lines of code, literally. So the thing I was using is a Spectre console, which is an amazing project. I think the main part consists of 2 packages, where one is offering a lot of CLI tools, such as rendering bar charts. You can also it has many features. For example, also like what we use for the timer and what we will be using at the end as well. And it has great documentation. So actually, what we were using is the bar chart here. So this is literally basically the code. Okay, it's not even 20 lines of code to create this bar chart. I will put a link to Spectre console in the chat, and also again later on, if you watch this video, the recorded video, it will be in the video description below of the video that you hopefully like, right?
Yes, the video
Always
that you
forget to
like and
mention
the
that.
account that you subscribe to.
Perfect. And definitely, if you give Spectre console a try, and if you like it, give it a star on GitHub. I think stars, or like I think stars are like the open source currency. So, or actually also, if you really use the project a lot and you really would like to support the author and the maintainer, you can also sponsor them either via recurring donations or one-off. If you'd like to see more of Spectre console.
Nice. I thought you were going to say you can give them a heart as well. It's like a star and a heart, but no.
Star in the heart, yes. So today we will tackle this task. We will add unit tests. We've decided for X unit. Also adding this in the chat here if you want to follow our issues board on GitHub. But now is the question, what do we test? We now cycle back to the original idea of we want to build a .NET tool that counts existing using directives in your code and also offers to change them into global, consolidate them into global using directives. What all of that means, we will figure out in the first half of today's episode, and the second half will be actually writing unit tests. So using directives are, I'll put documentation into the chat, and you will find it in the video later in the description. Using directives are basically, you usually put them on the top of your file so that you don't have to use the full qualified namespace everywhere. So let's have a look in our code. So what we built in the very first episode is our tool. Let's have a look at if this still works. Let's open a terminal and see .NET Run. Oh, I need to switch to the correct directory, of course. Oops. CD into tools. There we go. .NET Run. So it currently prints to the console. Yes, it still works.
Nice.
To code or not to code? That is the question.
That is the question.
Which is basically caused by this code that we have here. So we do a console white line and printing the string to the console. And on the top here, let's zoom in. Actually, I think I experimented with a feature yesterday, the Zen mode. Maybe this gives more.
Wow.
It doesn't really give more viewing space.
That
I
feels
stick with the
so
regular one.
zen. I already feel zen. Love
But
it.
I'll turn off the minimap. Yes. So we have our using directive on top of the file. This is a using directive. And with that, we don't need to use the full qualified name of the console, because the console, if I have a look at that, this type, this class console, is actually within the namespace system. It is good practice to put your types into meaningful namespaces so that you avoid potential name collisions. So I could also write a console, but I shouldn't put it into system console because that already exists. I put it into my namespace.console in order to avoid name clashes. And it's also good practice to group types that belong together and may depend on each other.
What would
And
happen if you indeed had like two of the same namespace and like, if I put my system right underneath, would it
let's give
then
it a
give an
try.
error?
So let's create our namespace, namespace system. Because I can also add new types in the system namespace. That's not, a namespace isn't locked down. I can, nobody really owns a namespace. And now let's create our own public static class console with also a public static void white line method that takes a string and does nothing. String text. Now we actually do get a warning. So we get a warning. The type console conflicts with. Okay, that's a little bit too big. Yes, the type console conflicts with the imported type from another assembly. So we have our type from the program. It conflicts with the one from the from system console. Which one? And it's actually using the type defined. So it's using our type, not the default .NET type. I guess because our type is, I think that's the resolution strategy, because this type is actually in this very same assembly. It's in the same project, and the standard .NET console is in the BCL. That's a different project. So I think this is why the compiler chooses this one, because it's closer.
Okay, but it's actually just a warning, so I could still run the code and it would work, but it might lead to problems later on.
Let's run the code. So we do get the compiler warning, but now this time, to code or not to code does not get printed because our code does nothing. Well, we could like throw an exception, throw a new not implemented exception, because I haven't implemented it actually. And if we would run it now, yeah, we would get this exception.
Nice.
Now I put this type into a different namespace. I call this namespace now my namespace. And now, yeah, we don't import this my namespace here. We import the system namespace. So the conflict is gone. And if we now run it again, we will use the standard, so the BCL, I didn't explain. The BCL is the base class library, which is this default set of types and method that come with .NET already in box. And now we use that default console again, and we print our string to the console actually.
Nice. Cool.
And yeah, we actually now already got, so it's good practice. I don't necessarily have to put types into a namespace. I could put them outside of a namespace. I think this gives me an info here, which is also a diagnostic. It says declare types in namespaces, because it's good practice.
Nice.
Yeah, but we could.
If it doesn't have a namespace, can I then I can't use it in any other file, basically, right?
Yes, you can. Let's actually give that a try. So let's create a new file. Okay, how do we create? I'm really creating new files in VS Code. There we go. I call it console. console.cs. Let's put it in here. So this doesn't compile because we don't have the system namespace imported. I could now use this using directive, using system, in order to, because the not implemented exception is, if we have a look at the source code, is in the system namespace. Or we could also use the full qualified name. So we could also use system dot not implemented exception. So we use the full name rather than the one from the imported namespace. And now, since this is now in the global namespace, I'm wondering what the overload resolution strategy is now doing, which type is selected. But since we don't, it seems that we use again our console. So the one which throws a not implemented exception, because again, it's closer. Yeah, we again get our not implemented exception, because that's now in the global namespace. That's like the default. If we don't declare, if we don't state the namespace explicitly, by default it's in the global namespace, which is basically the same as we could actually write that and say global : to make that explicit. We see that the editor makes this a little bit darker, so this is optional. I do also get a light bulb. That's a quick fix, and it says to simplify the name, because writing this global here is redundant. But yeah, so we can also use types in global namespaces. That's actually the default, because if we don't import any namespace, we are in the global namespace, so we can totally use that. But we shouldn't always put the types into a namespace.
Yes. No, I can see how that, especially if you're working with other people and have big projects, and that would be unwise to not use namespaces.
Indeed.
To always be in the global namespace. Okay, cool.
And yeah, so we also now had a look at so let's call this console differently. This is my console. And also let's put it into a namespace. Let's call this namespace my namespace. I can also nest namespaces. I could have like another namespace within a namespace. My namespace, how do we call it? Nested namespace. And then within the nested namespace have our my console. And now the full qualified name has this entire path. So this would now be, if we want to have my console, it would be my namespace dot nested namespace dot my console. And now we have what we do have here is a using directive, so that we don't have to write it here. Because what if I use the system console many times, I would effectively need to edit like everywhere.
Okay.
That's a bit tedious, so shorter code makes it more readable. And this is why we have this using directive. But there is more that we can do with the using directive. We can also state an alias. I always say alias. How can I remember how to pronounce it correctly?
I always think of alien, because for me it looks really similar, the word alien, alias, Okay. Does that make sense?
Yeah, alias. I think we also looked up what is that? In German, it's an Eselsbrücke. It's how do we call? It's a mnemonic.
Mnemonic.
Right? Mnemonic. Okay.
Something like that. Yeah.
Before we jump into aliases,
nice.
Timo says, "Wubba-lubba-dub-dub. I finally made it. Thank you very much for joining." Do you know where the Wubba-lubba-dub-dub is from?
No.
Rick and Morty.
Oh, really? I know. I love Rick and Morty. I watch it all the time. But apparently I have to watch it again.
Yes.
So I can... Apparently I missed that.
And yeah, so static, aliases.
Aliases. Right?
Aliases. We can also declare aliases. So what if I don't want to have What if I don't want to have the name console here because it may conflict? Actually, we do have this issue. Let's also import our the other namespace, which now has the other console in place. And okay, now we actually get an error. This time we get an error. It's an ambiguous reference. It doesn't know which one to resolve.
Interesting.
Because okay, it's not because what I said earlier was wrong, because I thought it's because in the same assembly. I think it was because it's in the same file. Now this is in a different file. So it seems now it's really ambiguous which one to take. So what I said with that it's in different assemblies was wrong. It seems to be that if it's in the same file, it will take precedence, but in different files, then it has the same. It seems to have the same precedence. So how can we now disambiguate this? Because maybe we consume another project which declared also a console, and now we have this ambiguousness. No, ambition.
Ambiguity.
Yes. So what we could do is give the system console a different name in this file. So we could write here, let's call this thing system console. System console. And or I can type console equals to system.console. So what we now have is a using alias directive. And the using alias directive now says, okay, for the system treat the name system console the same as if it was system.console. So we can now use system console here, and we don't get a warning anymore. And if we run the code, we will not get the exception. We actually use the system console, and it indeed prints to code or not to code onto the console.
Nice.
And this is how we could use with aliases, rename things and avoid ambiguity. And with C#6, there was another addition added to the using directive land, a so-called using static directive. And this is, so we can now add a static before a using. So this is not an alias, but it's like a static using, and now importing the type statically, more or less. So what I can now write is actually white line without writing console beforehand, because I basically imported the name, imported all members of this, so imported the console type statically, which means that all members now of this console are available. And if we wanted code, that's still the very same. It still prints to code or not to code to the console. But we now have basically and it's all the methods, because system console also has a write method. And what else? I think it's background color, so we can change the background color.
Cool.
To I need some. Is it just color? System console color dot red.
Yes.
And let's give that a try. Oops.
Oh,
and
I love it.
Red background.
Nice.
And I think there's also a method called reset color to go back to the old color, so that we don't have the rest of the output now, because now everything would be red, but it doesn't do what I expected it to do. Well, okay, now it's red.
Now everything's red. Perfect.
Yeah.
It's my favorite color, so I'm happy with that.
And without that using static, we would need to, basically state the entire thing. And I think this is now about what we had with using directives up to you want probably foreground. Do you mean to set the foreground color? I thought reset color is resetting both foreground and background, is it not? System dot Black, I guess. Also, no, I'm setting the foreground color to green. Okay, well, that's hardly distinguishable, but it's a little bit darker now. Okay.
Is
Yeah,
it?
so here, barely visible, but yeah, there is a small difference. My design skills are not good.
Hey, our advent calendar was very well designed, I must say. That was no, it was great. That made my Christmas.
Ooh,
If you're interested in that, check out our previous episodes. A little bit of self-advertising. Okay.
self-reference. Yes, so this is what we had with using directives up until C# 6. And with C# 10, we got global using directives. So what we now can do is, I'll comment this code out for later. Let's go back to our console.writeLine. I'll remove all the usings. And yeah, it says, okay, we don't know, we don't have any namespace imported. We don't know where this console is actually at. So what we can do is in a dedicated file, or like it could be in any file, but I think it's good. It's generally good practice to have like a dedicated file. I call this one global usings.cs. And in this global usings, we can now declare global usings. So we do the same as with the using system that we had previously in the local file, but we add a global beforehand. And this basically now would be the same as if we were writing using system in each and every file. So if we had using system here and using system here, this is basically the same. So if I have the same using directives in each and every file, which basically take away vertical space, because if you have like 20 usings, I first have to scroll down to actually come to the code. And it's very likely to have the system namespace in a file. And with that, we can basically consolidate it into a single using that then applies to the entire project, to every document, to every C# file in that project. So we can now get rid of this local using directives, and the code still works. So we can still run the code. We still get to code or not to code. And this is how we, this is the global using directives. And with that, we can also have the other two, do I pronounce it correctly now? The alias and the static using
Yes.
as well. So let's again say we have our, because now let's globally include the other console as well. Let's have a global using onto the my namespace dot nested namespace as well, which now means in our program file, we again have this ambiguity. Okay, which console now to take? The one from the system namespace or one from our custom namespace? And we can again do an alias, alias globally. By the end of the episode, I will know how to properly pronounce alias. So we can say global using, then say the alias. Let's call it again system console. System console is system.console. I'll pull this file down here so we see both. And now, because that's a global using alias, we can use it everywhere in our project. So we can now write system console here. And again, if we run our code, it works. It uses the system console, not our exception throwing console. And the same also applies to the static using. So if I were to remove the type altogether, just have WriteLine, and now want to have the console type imported statically in each and every file, we can write a global using static system.console. And the compiler error will go away soon. Niche There we go.
Yes.
And again, we can run our code. Everything is good.
Amazing.
So we have those three usings. We have the default using directive. We have the alias directive and the static directive. And those three we can, in C#10, also write globally. We consolidate it into one file that applies to each and every document in the entire project. And now with .NET 6, not also released C#10, but also the so-called implicit usings. I think in a previous episode, we always explicitly ignored them. Because I think if we have a look at the...
We explicitly ignored implicit usings.
Okay, that was...
Say that 3 times really fast.
No. So if we have a look at our original tool, we did comment out this code, which is now part of, since .NET 6, this is part of every template. You get the implicit usings enabled here. We disabled it because we said, hey, we wanna talk about this in a future episode. We won't enable nullable yet. This will be a future episode. But today it's time for the implicit usings. So if we comment that out, that now globally imports. We have some trouble loading something. Okay, that now globally imports a set of using statements, using directives. As a matter of fact, the system using is part of that. So if we now go to our custom global usings, I'll comment out everything in our custom global usings, so they won't be considered anymore.
Mm-hmm.
Now again, the system write line would fail. So let's say system.console write line. And although we don't have a using system at our file, so we have nothing, we can omit the system, because the system using directive globally one is implicitly included. And while your salted devil says hi,
Hello. Just in time.
Yes, I'll go into the why. Oh no, again, the how. So what does the enabling this implicit usings actually do? So what we have, when we build a project, we get both a bin and an obj folder. The bin folder includes like the final result, the final executable, and the obj folder includes some intermediate files that get created during compilation, but are not necessarily part of the final assembly, of the final library that we ship via NuGet, or the final exe that we deploy onto our function or Azure function or AWS Lambda or whatever. So in the obj folder, we can go into the debug or release. I think we built with release, so let's go to release. And in this release folder, we now have a, will I find it? Oh. Let's have a look in debug. Maybe it's in debug. There it is. Okay. I guess, okay, I did. Did I run with debug? Not sure. But here it is. We have a .global using.g.cs. So we have the name of our project, and then appended to it global using.g.cs. Every time you find a C# file that has a dot that ends not with .cs but .g.cs, that basically is an indicator that this file is generated. So this is generated by some tool. If you have a look at this file, we see there is a bunch of using directives. We also get a comment here to tell the reader, and also automated tools, that this is an auto-generated file. And we do get a bunch of global using directives. What we have here again is this the global namespace alias that I showed earlier. So this is optional, but the tool, it's good practice to use this global namespace alias. It's good practice to use the global namespace alias in generated code. And we have the system collections generic, link threading. We have some threading.tasks. This is what we need if we do async and await. Since the .NET team considered these was this 7 usings as the most likely to be in a significant amount of numbers in documents of your project, they are now part of the global usings. And so we get all of them automatically. So we could also write if we jump, we could write an async method. We have the task already. We don't need any using here because it's part of the global usings. And they get auto-generated, right? So if I delete stuff from this auto-generated file and would .NET build again, okay, I'm not sure if I can fix my output now.
I love it.
Okay. That's it. That's my life now.
It's very very flashy.
It comes right back. So I delete it, I build, and this is usually what happens with auto-generated files. They get regenerated if you generate them again. But what if so how do they actually do this under the hood? So let's have a look at the source code. Jumping to the correct browser, we can have a look at the source code of the SDK. So we're actually in the .NET SDK source code. I'll put this into the chat as well. And I think there's a tip how to fix it. I'll have a look at it in a second. So here's exactly the code that so this gets imported in each and every default C# project. So we see that's the Microsoft.NET SDK C# props. There are some defaults for every C# project. And what we get is if the user has implicit usings either set to true or to enabled, then we get this set of usings. And this is the exact 7 usings that we see in our file. So this is the source code from how this gets generated. So they're using this MS build using items here in order to create their global usings. And since this is MS build, we could actually modify that. So let me grab that code and, well, not really modify, but play with it and add this to our project. So in our project, let's have the same condition. So this is a condition. We don't necessarily need that. We can also say, yeah, we know we have it enabled. But especially if you're a library author and want to ship global usings with your library as well, it's good practice to include this guard. Because what if the user doesn't like? Maybe they don't like implicit usings. They always want to declare them explicitly. So they could basically disable it. Or set it to false, or basically set it to anything that is not true or enabled, to disable them, and now they are gone. So if I would now build the project, we see again, the namespace isn't found. It's not imported, not globally. It doesn't work anymore. So if we enable it again or set it to true, because this is what you saw in the source code, we can do. And what if I don't want to have the system one? I don't like it. So what we could do, since this is MS build, so what we get per default is the include. We could remove an item. I can say remove, because basically what we have in MS build is we have a property group, which is basically a key value pair, and you have item groups, which is a collection. And to this collection, for example, to this using collection, we can add and remove items. And I will now remove this one item that was added by the default. So again, if we jump to the console, it doesn't work because we explicitly excluded it. So if I comment this out, it will be part of the compilation again, and it works. Actually, let's show the evidence. Let's have a look at the generated file, if I find it this time. Global usings, there it is. And now in the global usings, the system is not part of it because we removed it. And we could also remove, if we don't like it, let's say net HTTP. I save this and it will be gone in a second.
Cool.
But conversely, we can also add our own using to it, right? So we can say using include, and we can add our my namespace dot nested namespace. And now the my namespace dot nested namespace is part of this auto-generated global usings file. So we can either declare it with C# or also with MS Build. And the same also goes for global static and global alias usings. So I'll also show, what was our example? I think our example was to call this system console. So what we could do is in MS Build say, I want to include system console. I want to include system.console as an alias. So let's say alias, and I call it system console. Now in our CS project, now in our generated usings, global usings file, we get the same using that we previously wrote by hand. And again, now this will compile. We can run our code. Oops, .NET Run. Perhaps, where is it? Timo wrote, just use the bin to remove the console and open a new one. Let's try that. Woohoo! Thank you so much. Now the red is gone.
We've got a different red.
Now we got a different, because it's, oh yes, because I need to navigate to the project, of course. Source.
Thank you, Timo.
Tools.
I did like the red, but it's quite a lot. It's a statement.
What? Let's do something in the middle. Let's do system dot, let's set the foreground. System dot console dot, let's set the foreground to red. Oops.
So,
there we go. What am I doing wrong here? The name console does not exist in the current context. What am I doing wrong? Should be good. Yeah, there we go. To code or not to code, that is the question.
yes.
Yeah, so what Timo suggests is to assign the original color to a temporary variable and then assign it back. I thought this is what reset console does, but maybe not for this terminal. Yeah, okay. For next time, always save what I'm about to change. Right, so this is now the alias, and we can also do a static using. So if we jump to MS Build, we can also say static, set it to true. And now what we will get is a global static using of system console. And now anywhere in our code, we can just write line and .NET Run. It will work, and our to code or not to code string is printed to the console. And I think this is all about the free usings that we also have as global variants, and how we can also manipulate the implicit usings generated file by the compiler. And I guess now it's time to get back to, I have a brief look at the questions, if I missed some. Timo writes that he hasn't found a good use case except for tests for implicit usings. He's stoked to find out if we have any. Well, actually, I also use them for tests mostly, to not have using XUnit in each and every test file. But in my projects, in the Roslyn projects, I also import the Microsoft.code analysis, the Roslyn namespaces in the in each file. I'm actually doing it so if I see that a using directive is used in most files, then I declare them as a global using, because I don't want to have it in each and every file. And basically then I save one line in many files. And I guess this is how the idea was born of the tool that we want to write, that now counts the using directives and also offers them to change them from a local using directive to a global using directive. And because this is actually what I wanted to do, not manually go through each and every file and count, okay, how often do I use this usings? Is it worth to promoting it to a global using? I would like to have a tool to do that for me.
And that's what we're going to build. I'm really looking forward to it. I was going to offer you my wisdom as well about when to use it in the different use cases, but the truth is I've never used it before. I'm glad, I'm just glad if the 3 lines of code that I write work with any amount of usings. I don't know. I've also never used global usings, so this is my wisdom for you. Enjoy.
Not yet.
Not yet. After this season, I'll be using it everywhere in my tests.
So, speaking of tests, let's start with some tests, right?
Let's do it. Let's do it.
Actually, what comes with the XUnit template, the XUnit template actually includes that already. So there is a usings.cs which has XUnit as a global using. So
nice.
That's also part of the template. Okay, cool. So let's write some tests. We now would like to have a tool, a .NET tool that basically counts all the usings. So our input would be some C# code. Actually multiple, one or many C# documents. And the output would be group and count using directives or occurrences of using directives. So how do we start with that?
Excellent question. Okay, so this is more the section where I get to do a little bit of coding. So as always, bear with me. I'm a noob, and help me out if I do something wrong. So because I'm new, I'll put my helpers there. So we want to, for unit tests, right? We want to arrange, I think, 3 A's: act and assert. I'm just gonna put that there, just for my sake. I know you guys can all do it in your sleep. Oh, I did it wrong. First mistake. Well done. And actually, well, the first thing is I could also change the names here and here. I don't know if you want to call it test 1 and unit test 1. Do you have any naming insights for?
So what will be testing? I guess do we want to? So basically, the initial release of our tool has 2 functionalities. It will be able to count using directives, but also this would be then the second test case would be the output is to change, basically add a global using and remove all local occurrences of that using directive. So should we have one type for each functionality, or do we want to group this in one type? Let's say the using globalizer or something.
I like globalizer. That sounds good. But that would count and globalize at the same time, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or we split it in 2. Well, we could also split it in 2. We have the using counter, and later on we have the using globalizer.
Okay.
Since you actually mentioned counting, maybe let's put it like that.
Yes.
And so we have the using counter, and I guess the using counter. So this will be the using counter tests.
Yes.
And I think from the last episode, we had a look at the naming convention where we have the method under test underscore scenario underscore output or expected result.
Expected result, yeah.
If we would like to stick to that, we also could use a different naming scheme if you prefer.
Let's stick to that. Oh, let's see how far we get. So that would be, I guess, counter, using
Count sounds great.
count. This is a word where you can't do any, like, you can't misspell it live on air. It would be so bad. Cancelled immediately.
Oh,
I was just shaking a little bit. Sorry, what's the scenario? Like,
um,
I suppose
let's
maybe,
start simple with a single using.
okay. Just about a single using, and then finds one.
Yeah.
Finds one. Fabulous. Love it. Okay, so let's arrange it. For the arrange part, what do we need? We need, I suppose, some input. What do you say? You said documents. So I suppose I'm going to go var documents, and I don't know, because we have to have like the using and account, right? So it could be maybe a dictionary, or it could be sort of like something that we build ourselves that might be even nicer. But for now, maybe, I'll start like last time. I'll just start maybe with like a list or something.
Let's start with list.
List of strings. So what is that? Oh, I didn't mean to do that. New list. Of type string, right? Oh, jeez. I wanted to click into the stream now, not into my live share thing. Of type string. And then I'm just going to fill it with a string, like using systems, right? Or using
System, yeah.
Okay. I'm so scared. This is scary, guys. Okay. Okay, and we said we only have one in there, right? So that should be
Yeah.
it. That's the list. That's the list. Fabulous.
To make that valid C# code, and actually we need a semicolon at the end to
Oh,
terminate the statement.
interesting. Cool. And it doesn't like my documents.
No, it just warns about that it's not in use yet. It says we unnecessarily
fabulous.
assign it. It's not in use yet.
Okay, let's use it. Let's act.
Woohoo.
So, what was our what is it? Global count? No, global using counter. Okay. No. How are we gonna? How do we call the?
Yeah, so the
the
type
thing
that does the counting, we
is
can
the
call
using
the
counter.
using counter. Yeah.
Counter dot. No, not tests. Counter dot count.
Cool.
And then we give the documents in there, right? Okay. And everything breaks.
Yeah, because the using counter doesn't exist yet.
Doesn't exist.
I'll be your. What's the opposite of an AI? I'll be your eye. No, I'll be just that. That would be an overstatement too.
I'll be me, myself, and you'll be my I. I love it.
Let's create the type. So we have the using counter.cs namespace. Oh, we need a namespace. Well, let's start with the namespace of the project. So this terminate f2. Flash over.core.tool. Let's put it into that namespace, and we have our public static class, the using counter, and it should have, well, the rest we can do with autocomplete, with refactorings. So I think now we can import the using. Oh no, we can't, because we don't consume the project yet. So we need to go to our test project. cd, yeah, it's now red. cd, let's jump to the test projects. .NET project. I need to ask for help because I forget how this works. Oh, is it .NET add? Is it not? .NET add. Okay, so we need to .NET add a reference to I need to jump out one directory. I think now I'm embarrassing myself. How do I go back? Add reference to dash dash. Let's have a look. There we go. Come on, library. Yes, and there it is. Reference added to the project. Right. And now we should be able to hit Control dot on it, and the type is now there. Yes. And for the count, I just hit Control dot. We generate the method count.
Nice.
And there it is.
Perfect. Cool. I'm also just going to save this, I suppose, in a variable called, I don't know, count, something like that.
Okay.
Is that fair? Just so we can like assert it better?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I just broke everything. Fabulous. Everything's right again.
Yeah, because we don't return anything yet. What do we want to return? An integer? Let's start with an integer for now.
Yes. Perfect. Yeah, because now we can do like assert. What is it? Assert dot equal. And then we have expected, which is 1, right? And count. Mm-hmm. Can we please all appreciate that so far I've not misspelled it? It takes a lot of effort. I'm just going to call it a C from now on.
Should we rename it?
No, I like it. It's like it gives you that little bit of adrenaline every single time.
I will just reopen, because now everything is red. Now it's difficult to see what has passed and so on.
Yeah.
I will open the console one more time. Oops, close it. Yes. cd into the project.NET test. And yes, so we have one failed test because it throws a not implemented exception. I will just return 1 here for now, and this should make it pass. Yeah, by the way, we won't really do the implementation of it today. This will be coming then in the next episode, where we'll be using Roslyn to actually implement this, how we can analyze the C# code and find all the using directives and counter occurrences and potentially replace them with a global using and so on.
Nice. Okay, so I suppose the next test would be the same with, I suppose, different documents.
With multiple, yeah.
Like multiple documents.
Yeah.
So
just formatting here. Yeah.
Perfect. I'll copy paste. I've got my little intent here. We don't count. Multiple. Many. 3. 5. Should we have like a fixed number, or should we just have multiple?
Let's say multiple.
Multiple usings finds multiple. Yes? Good.
Yeah.
Great.
I don't have. We can always rename later if we come up with a more precise name, a more descriptive name.
Okay, so we just need multiple documents, and our documents are just strings at the moment. So
well, let's start with multiple usings. Let's have then the next test where we actually have multiple documents.
Multiple usings, yes. Just documents because it's like documents here, which I suppose, yeah.
So let's have still one document, but with multiple usings, multiple using directives in that document.
So we need using.
So let's say. So
no, did it wrong?
I meant like we have one document, so we need one. If we have one string per document.
Yes.
I would like to have one string that represents one document, but with multiple using directives. So we have using system, maybe also collections, generic, and so on.
Okay.
Perhaps maybe actually in the meantime, I go find, maybe let's use as an example the one from the global usings. If I can find that again, it was in object debug global usings. Let's grab that and use that as an input. But how do we now get, like, I'm just pasting them in here.
Yeah.
How do we now get these nicely into that string? Because now I'm segueing into my favorite part now.
Ah, in
Yes,
that case, I know
yes.
exactly what you're talking about. I was about to say no clue, but no, I do. It's the raw string,
Raw strings.
raw strings,
Yes.
right?
Yes. Well, also
Yes.
raw string literals is also because it's a literal. We will have a language literal here.
Nice. That's 1 star for me.
Can you still remember how you can write a raw string literal?
No, no, not really. But I know that there are loads of like loads of these, loads of clicking at the stream again. I'm not in my live share. Loads of these,
The
right?
quotes.
Yes. No, it's
I
not
don't
right.
see your cursor, I'm afraid.
Yes, loads of quotes.
Lots of quotes. So
And a
actually,
dollar sign, a lot of dollar signs or corresponding dollar signs. No.
yeah. So that then with the interpolation. So if
Yes.
we have because
No
the
stars for me on that one.
half a star.
I could remember the name.
Well, which is basically the one
Half
thing
a star. Oh my
which is actually
god.
the one thing you need to remember, and then now you can go ask Google or
Yeah.
ChatGPT to give you the answer. Actually, yeah. So
Perfect.
that's good. Because the problem is if we want to have like this as a string, so we have multiple lines. If it would be, I can't really just paste this in here because yeah, that's not how a string works. What we could do now is like to add these up to have like multiple strings and always add a plus at the end and basically add those strings up. But now we basically have one long string because we don't really have new lines in here because it's just concatenating strings. So if we want to have a new line as well, we would need to do environment.newline as well. And this now turns not so readable pretty fast.
Yeah.
So what we could do with C#, I forgot which one it was. We can add the @ that is verbatim strings. The thing about verbatim strings, it takes everything as an input, verbatim. So what we now have is a little bit of a weird formatting because usually when you have a variable or a list, you then start the next line indented. So it should actually start here, but we need to start from the beginning because how do we show? Let's go to the program and let me jump to sharplab.io because this is where we can show this quickly. And if I enable the run feature, let's have I'll grab that string. Let's create our public. Let's create a class, my class, so that we get some intention going, and my public void method. And in this method, I will be declaring a text. Let's paste the string in here. And now let's print this to the console.writeLine. Print this text. Let's call this . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . doing wrong here? Okay, so this is now, let me remove the globals here because we don't have global usings just yet. So the thing is that the code is not really super nice format, or not really C# formatted, because this is outdented rather than indented in order to get our string. If I would now go ahead and indent this verbatim string, we would see that it's really, because it's verbatim, those indentions are part of the string. It's one big verbatim string. Everything between the quotes are part of the string. Now we have this. This is now, it now looks better from the source code point of view, but the output isn't that beautiful now. And this is where the war string literals come in. So we can say 3
Aha.
quotes instead of 2 quotes.
Loads of quotes.
And now we have our verbatim string. So the formatter here still marks them as C# code, but it's actually a string. So how this works is we start with 3 quotes, or at least 3 quotes, and we end with the same amount of quotes. And the ending now dictates the indentation. So because we basically have 2 levels of indentation here, but 3 levels of indentation here, the difference is 1 indentation level, and this is what we actually get here. So we have some spaces here. And if I would now indent this, the closing of the war string literal, now we actually have what we really, really want. So we have the combination. Now we have this nicely indented string in our C# text, but also get exactly the output that we want. And if I would indent this one more time, now this is invalid, because now what we tell the compiler is basically outdent the string by 1, but it can't go less than 0. So this is invalid. But I could, like, if I put it in here, we have exactly this level of indentation. And this is the beauty of the war string literals, and how I like to use them together when we write like C# code as a string. And what you mentioned with the $sign, we can also do string interpolation. So let's say I have a variable. Let's say our variable is to code or not to code. And let's pass this in as a string. That's a parameter. And we want to use that parameter in the string. Let's say I want to edit, I want to have a comment here basically. And usually string interpolation is done with the braces. And with that, we can now enable this via the $sign. So I have this one $sign, and now what is between the braces is interpolated and actually used as the value here. So we have to code or not to code. But what if we also have more code? Let's say we have a namespace here, because it's C# code that we want to write, my namespace. Now the namespace has braces. Now this is where it falls apart, because those braces are actually now interpreted as string interpolation and not as verbatim text. So what we can do now, the amount of dollars here says the amount of braces that are interpreted as string interpolation. So if we have $2, now the singular brace is really C# text. And since we have a singular brace here, this is really interpreted as verbatim text. But if we use 2 braces, because we have $2 signs, now this is string interpolation, and we get our to code or not to code string up here. And we can like continue this. What if we want to have, I don't know, maybe we want to have 2 braces for some reason, or 3 braces. Now we could say, I say that, exactly $5 signs should be used for string interpolation. So we open with 5 braces, we close with 5 braces, and now still have our string interpolation. So the number of $signs is relevant for the string interpolation. But the same goes also with the quotes. So what if I want to have quotes in my string? Let's say I want to have exactly 3 quotes. Now this doesn't work, because these quotes terminate the string, so this is invalid C#. So we need to have, as opening and closing, we need to have at least 3. We could have 4. If I open with 4 and close with 4, now everything below, like 3, is interpolated as text. And we have, oops, and we have our string here. And again, we can have like many. Let's do 1, 2, let's have a couple of here. We need to
Wow.
end with the same amount. This goes like as long as a string length is allowed. And these open and close, and everything in between is now interpreted as verbatim. And this is what you meant with there can be many quotes and many dollar signs.
Yes. So I basically said exactly the same thing.
Yes, you did.
No, I did not.
And now we can use this to the raw string literals to write in our tests beautiful C# code that is then actually then correctly formatted at runtime as well. So yeah, let's jump back to the tests. So now let's apply the raw string literals here.
Yes, let's do that. Wait, yes. So what was it? 3 quotes at the beginning, 3 quotes at the end. Where am I? Oh God, here. Thank you. No.
But now,
Yes.
yeah, now we get a compiler warning because we don't have this feature enabled yet. If we have a look at our CS project, because we created a .NET 6 project. And per default, if we go to C# language version, that's this one, we see that per default, .NET 6 is using C# 10. I do have the .NET 7 SDK installed, so even though we are targeting .NET 6, we could use the C# 11 language. And this is what we're going to do now. So we can add this lang version property to our CS project. I'll add it right here and say the language version that we want to use. In our case, I want to use 11. So let's put an 11 here. And now we basically overwrite the default of .NET projects using C# 10 with using C# 11, and that works because I have the .NET 7 SDK installed. Let me confirm that if we do a .NET --list SDKs, we see that I have the 7.0.2.2 SDK installed, so we can use C# 11.
Nice.
And now the compiler warning is not gone yet, but we have the feature. Now we need to set the correct we need to have correct line breaks.
Okay. So yay, did it. Easy. No, not quite.
I'll get rid of the globals in the meantime to make this a bit more precise what we want. Yeah. So we need to have, so we have the opening and the closing on a separate line. That's good. But we need to have the text at least,
Yes. No. Is that, right. Something like that. No.
I would
like
have it,
that.
I would intend it by one more level because like we are starting a new line, but this is still part of this string. So I would, exactly like that.
Yeah. Okay. Ow. Yes. I love it. Fabulous.
Cool.
Easy.
Excellent.
That's always the thing. Like if I can use it, anyone can. So this is Eva approved. Okay. Yes. Sorry.
Yeah, I love raw string literals, especially when doing Roslyn code in C#, writing C# in C#.
Classic. Okay, but so we count the documents. What do we do? We find multiple. Okay, and then what would the count be then, though?
Yeah, I guess
What do we expect?
we either now need the dictionary that you mentioned, or our custom type. What would you prefer?
Ultimately, I suppose a custom type, but we could start with a dictionary. I don't know.
Okay. Then instead of an integer, I'll return here the dictionary. So this will be. I'll return this as a I read only dictionary, so it cannot be. So the result cannot be modified. with a string as a key and an integer as a number. For now, I'll return null because we need to implement later.
Fair enough.
Okay, so we
So we
now
need to
have
change the list, right?
no, this is actually
No,
the input.
this is the
So
list.
this is
This
the
is the input.
That's good.
Okay.
But we need the dictionary to like assert against.
Yes. No, I still don't know how to assert.
So now basically we now create
So basically, yeah, sorry.
Go ahead.
No, okay, so we basically we have a string and an integer, right? That we need to assert.
Yes.
No?
But in the dictionary, that's the dictionary that you mentioned. So we now have basically a key value
input?
pair combination of
Okay.
of the dictionary that we then compare against. So we will build up our reference dictionary that we expect as an output, and then compare both dictionaries.
Okay. So I could have like, or yeah, I don't know. I always use. Oh, I know it's not beautiful, but thingy. So like expected result or something like that. I could and then build it.
Sounds good.
Expected result. That doesn't. Okay. Is and then new dictionary.
Mm-hmm.
Dictionary of type. We have a string and an int. And we're going to fill it with, I don't know what I'm doing. Okay, using system and 1 or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
And then
Exactly.
system and an integer 1.
Mm-hmm. Well, perhaps let's not expect the using, because we know it's using directives. So I would just have using here. So basically the content. This is what we expect as a using. And in order to write a dictionary correctly, I'll reformat it a little, because that makes it a little bit more obvious. Because a dictionary is unlike the list. A list is just one item, but dictionary has 2 items: the key and the value per entry. Yes, exactly.
Yes, correct.
So we need to put this again into braces.
Okay. Oh my god, do I have to copy paste all of that now? Yes, most
I'll
likely.
help copy pasting.
Pardon?
I will help copy pasting. Yeah, I guess this is now what an AI tool could take care of, right?
It could. Oh, I forgot the thingies as well. But you're my eye, so.
I'm the eye.
System that threading the task is missing. Why doesn't it want me? Okay. Yay.
Cool.
Oh, the last. Do we need this one? No.
I guess this is not a styling question. You could also keep the trailing comma. I personally prefer the trailing comma, because if we were to add a new item later on in the Git history, it would be really an addition.
And it was also makes it easier to copy paste.
And also that, yeah.
Great, I love it. And then we can have here expected result and count. No, expected result.
What I'm actually not sure of is, because let's have a look. Oh, yes. So it seems that XUnit has an overload of assert equal that takes 2 dictionaries. So this seems to be most likely comparable already. I'll just copy that, return it from our fake implementation.
And now the first test case should fail.
And let's see if that. Well, actually, let's cheat a little. Let's say if the documents count. If the documents count is 1, we return a dictionary of. Oops. We return a dictionary of.
But is that
of 1.
Okay.
and otherwise we return the full dictionary. So let's basically give exactly what the test wants. I think we need to update our test up there as well, and then we could run the test. Also the first test, because we now changed the integer returns up to a dictionary.
Yes. Okay. So but we need another expected result thingy, right? Yes.
Yes.
Yes. I'll copy all of that.
In the meantime,
Yeah.
Timo is shouting out to ChatGPT and our machine overloads.
Expected result.
What was again the name of the thought experiment, the basilisks thing?
What?
That we need to be good. We need to treat computers, machine and the eyes well, because when they will eventually take over, they will be good to us.
I always say please when I use ChatGPT. To be fair, I always do. I've never said thank you.
Okay.
I might start
Okay.
that, but
Yeah.
I do start. Yeah, with please. I also had that issue with like Alexas. I just can't, like all the things around. I always have to say please, and I said thank you, and actually Alexa says you're welcome or something like that.
The Rocco's basilisk, right? Yeah.
Nice.
Yes, we shall do that.
Okay, let's run the tests. Let's see.
And let's run
I
the
did it
test.
right.
.NET test. And we have a, somewhere we try to convert an integer to a...
Yes, I did it wrong.
Where? Can't find it. Let's remove that here.
No, actually, I have no clue.
String integer. Did I make a mistake over here? String integer, string integer. String integer. Interesting. Let's read. Argument 1 cannot convert int to... Oh, yes. Okay. My bad. No. Yes.
My bad.
What?
Oh.
Where are we? So we are in the unit tests project.
I suppose if it wants to... Because...
Cannot convert, where are we? We are in line number...
Because documents is once a list and once a dictionary. Might that be an issue?
Well, this is the input.
Yeah. But didn't you say if documents is
17.
1 or something?
Here we are. Is it...
The trading comma
System
broke
collection
everything.
generic. This doesn't seem to work as I would expect. Interesting. Does somebody spot the issue? I can't think. It's .NET build. Oh. .NET test. Okay, did I not save? Yeah, I obviously didn't. Oh, yes. Okay, great. So it does compile. I think I just forgot to save. And let's actually do the .NET test. How does it, the .NET Watch test? So it will automatically run the tests. So I only need to have to save and not type .NET test again. And we have an error because it says that the maybe it can't compare dictionaries as we expected it to. Oh, no, my mistake. Because we always, our input is always one element because it's not the count, because we only have one string. Let me do some cheating. So the first test, like, what's the length of this? How many characters is that? Because I was counting on the count. We always enter just one document. So this doesn't work. We have 13 characters. So if the documents has a count of 1 and the documents on index 0's length is 13. Now,
wow.
Yeah, this is super but to get the test screen and see, okay, that our comparison works, and we're good to go.
This is why you should never trust the green tests. That's sort of what they tell you in testing school 101, because developers in the background will do stuff like that. No, they won't. Everyone's trying to do good work and not just get test screen.
Yeah, we will
no,
do
but it's cool.
documentation next session.
Passed, easy, perfect. Our counter is done. No.
Cool. Well, I guess now let's have a test that
Yeah.
confirms that it works when we actually have multiple documents and it actually groups them from the multiple documents correctly and such.
Oh my God. Sure. Absolutely. Let's do that. I'm with you. I'll start with the naming. Start with the easy bits.
So we basically could actually copy both tests. So we have we have we have now a single using multiple documents and a multiple using multiple documents kind of a story.
Okay. Okay. Gotcha. Let's do that. Copy. Paste. Okay, let's start. Count single using in multiple documents?
Single using, let's have single documents first. No, yes, single using multiple documents.
In multiple documents. Finds.
Yeah, what does this find now refer to? Like one using? Well, it finds one using.
One occurrence?
That's single using one
Two occurrences?
Two occurrence. Yeah, that sounds good.
Oh my God. Finds. Finds two occurrences. That's not how you spell it. Do you spell it? Is that how you spell it?
It looks good to me.
Fair enough. Okay.
But
perfect.
I'm not sure.
If anybody's an English native speaker which is better than the two of us, let us know if we have a spelling mistake here. If not, then let's have multiple documents. So this is document 1, I suppose. And
no, actually, so this is all our collection. So this will be the string collection.
Yes. Now is the thing that I wanted to do before, isn't it?
Yes, exactly.
Yes. So using system.
So this will be now a different. Basically, we simulate now here a different file, which has also a system using on top.
Count documents string expected system 2.
Cool.
And good luck by
faking the implementation.
Counter.
Well, no, actually, it's gonna be easy because now I say, okay, if.
Oh no, I froze again.
Let me copy it. Oh yes, you did.
Why does it happen? But at least this time it's smiling. Last time it was terrible.
I'll briefly give it a try if I remove and add you again. No, that didn't work.
Okay.
Maybe time will help.
Maybe time will tell. Sorry.
So now I just have the implementation that if we have a count of 2 documents, we return the system choose string thing. So it should turn green. Oh, I just gifted underscore. Oops. I think Eva has lost connection. We will work on the reconnecting. But the test is passed. So we have simulated that we now pass in 2 documents, same with the same usings, and that also works. And until Eva is back, I'll go ahead and also implement the multiple usings in multiple documents. So she is connected back in Visual Studio Live Share. And back on
Hello! Did you miss me? What did I miss?
Yes.
Yeah, I was in Visual Studio Live Share the whole time, so I was seeing what you were doing.
I couldn't sneak in anything.
You couldn't sneak in anything. Nothing.
So yeah, so we got the first test running. Well, the third test, and basically now named the fourth one to multiple usings in multiple documents.
And
How do we call it? Finds two occurrences. So how should we call that? Finds many occurrences.
very nice.
How should we split our strings here? Or our documents?
What if I think I would just copy and paste all of them and then no?
Okay, so let's go
Or like
ahead
have
and. Oh, so you're back, right? Yeah. Let's add another
okay.
entry to that list.
Okay.
I'm then wondering how this looks like with the raw string literals. If this is like visible what we're trying to achieve here.
So yeah, exactly. So where do I have to I know I didn't want that. Like this, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then woo. And then I'm just gonna do a couple, but I'm gonna not have them exactly the same. I'm maybe gonna delete this one.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Oh,
I'll
or should I
zoom out
just
a
make it
little so
easy
that
for
you see.
you if you want
No,
when
no,
you
no.
think?
Go ahead.
Okay.
Oh.
Okay. This one and that one, and then this one I just really no. I'm also gonna delete these two. Okay.
Never question about formatting. What do you prefer? I never wrote code like this, and now I'm asking myself, okay, how to format this? Would you prefer it like this, or if we put it like that?
Yeah.
What's more like
I actually prefer
visibly
it like that.
palpable?
I
The
think, yeah,
version one or
just the
two?
version 2, to be
Okay.
honest. It just makes it's for me, it's equally as visible, but you just save that one line.
Yeah, that's also my because we kind of want to free up vertical space by globalizing using directives.
Yeah,
But then we waste it somewhere else again. It would be kind of
silly.
hypocritical, wouldn't it?
Yeah, totally.
Okay, so now we have to count usings. I guess we have system 3 times, we have collections generic 3 times, we have IO 3 times, we have threading 2 times, and link and tasks 1 time.
Nice.
Cool. Yeah. How do I do that? I guess it's also, let's say, if we have a document count of 1, return the previous one. Else, we return, what was it again? 3, 3, 3, 2,
2, 1, 1.
1, 1. Let's save. .NET Watch will run the tests, and actually,
Nice.
let me actually make a
Perfect.
mistake. Let me actually make a mistake and see
Yes.
what the output will be. So the output says that we expected system free, generic free, IO free, but actually, yeah, here's the difference. Cool. So we got now that test.
Okay.
Now I would like to cover 2 more cases.
Go for it.
Actually, I'll jump to some. I'll write it in like real code up here, because what if we have 2 usings and then we actually have something else? We have like a class, my class or something, in the text as well. So would this break our system? I guess we should confirm that. And also,
yeah, we should confirm that.
Also, what you can do, since we have our namespace here. Actually, what we're having here is C#9 type of namespace declarations. There is also the file scope namespaces. And the cool thing about file scope namespaces, it saves us horizontal space. So what we can do is convert this. Now we have the semicolon here, and everything that comes afterwards is now within that namespace. The drawback is you can only have one file scope namespace in one file. With the block scoped namespace, you can actually have multiple namespaces in one file. I could have another namespace right here. With the file scope namespace, you can only have one, but usually, that's like 99% of the types in one file are in the same namespace. So this is how we can save some horizontal space, sorry. And what if, and we can have, so we are now going to add is that namespaces could be, no, wrong, using directives can either be outside of the namespace declaration or also inside of the namespace declaration. If we would write the same thing in a block scope namespace, it would look like this. If I comment that, so if basically either we are the file scope namespaces, I can have the declarations, the using directives outside or inside the namespace, and basically that's the same. We have here the namespace. Oops. Panic
Deleted
mode.
everything.
Yes, we have here the namespace, and outside or inside the namespace, our using directives. So I would like to cover those cases as well. So perhaps let's add a test which has. Perhaps we should also test like for the different language versions, because the file scope namespaces, they are C#10, and those block scope namespaces are C#9 and before. Well, in C#10 and 11 we can still write block scope namespaces because C# is not really, is only in some super rare corner cases they do some breaking changes. So perhaps we should have like a block scoped version and also a file scoped version of both the
Good shout.
Namespace within and outside of the namespace. But we actually we could have this in one test. We could have one test which adds those 4 documents and shows us all those cases. Or we put this in several tests, however you prefer.
I mean, technically, I think, it's unit tests. So let's, like gathering too many things is probably not a good idea. But on the other hand, I think if I understood it correctly, I think we can put it in one test.
Okay.
Which one should I copy? Last one? Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, if we find a nice name for it. If we can't, then maybe that's indeed an indicator that we should split it up, as you mentioned.
Good shout. That's maybe why this naming convention is useful. I don't know. Okay, count remains the same. Multiple users in multiple documents and multiple.
Yeah, I guess now maybe let's kill the multiple. So basically, the cases what we have is a file scope namespace within. No, a file scoped. What do we have? Using directives within file scoped namespace. Then we have a using directive outside of file scope namespaces, and the same combination for block scoped namespaces.
Okay. So, wait.
So perhaps we could have 2 tests. For example, we split them here, and we have one test for file scope namespaces and one for block scope namespaces. So this would be the scenario. We have the scenario file scope namespaces and block scope namespaces.
Files. Do I have the minus in between as well? No.
No, we can't have minuses. So we can only have in identifiers, such as a method name, we can only have upper and lowercase letters, numbers, and underscores.
File.
But it can never start with It can never start with a digit though.
Okay. Um,
File scope namespaces, yeah.
okay, and then
I call it now finds all occurrences. Yeah.
I like that. Yeah, I'm just also, but I'm really unsure how to sort of now put that in the list. Like how to.
So let's do a, yeah, perhaps we add like both documents. So let's say we have two documents for the file scope namespace. No, actually we could combine. Let me draw an idea. So if we now say the namespace here, namespace, I call it my namespace. We're in file scope namespace land, right? Namespace, and then we have a, let's say this is it, and I also declare a public class, my class. So we have some type here as well. And the next one then could be maybe combining. So we have namespace, my namespace here. We have some outside, some inside.
Nice.
I call this, oops, I now call this my class 1. So below we have a my class 2. And at the end we do a my class 3. And let's put them all inside of the namespace. So we have like all combinations. We have only outside, both outside and inside, and only inside.
Yes.
And however, I didn't mean to remove them up here. So let me bring that back so that we have some repetitive scheme in our tests. Because now actually we should still have the very same amount of usings. Because we haven't really changed anything about the usings directives. We just reformatted our code.
Formatted, yeah.
So I guess the rest of the test still applies.
Easy.
And now I'd like
Easy
to
peasy lemon
basically
squeezy.
copy the test again and do it for the block scope namespaces.
Yes. Oh no. So long now. Long tests. Okay. Oh, did I forget a bracket? Yeah, damn it. Never mind. And then, did you already add it? No, you didn't. Okay.
No, I was about. The eye assisted tool was about to.
Okay, where's your block? Oh, wait, block scoped cheat sheet.
Oh, I removed it already. Sorry.
You removed my cheat sheet.
Basically, now just change the file scope namespaces to block scope namespaces.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know how?
Yes.
Cool.
I do. I don't really, but I have an idea. No, it's fine. I can do it. Okay, so like so it's where there's no semicolon, right?
That's
But
right.
there is a brackets. So
Exactly.
easy. But I have no clue where I need to close them. Right here, maybe?
Exactly.
Easy.
The thing is now, because it's just a string, we can't have like all the fancy refactoring tools and so on.
Yeah.
So oops. So I'll be the refactoring tool here.
Okay, good.
So it's not auto format, it's manual format.
Nice. We've got a class here as well. Oh god. I'm doing well. Look at me live coding, doing my stuff.
Yeah, live coding does add a bit of pressure to it, doesn't it?
Yeah, that's my excuse. The truth is I'm always this slow. Okay.
Good thing we record all of it.
Slow and steady.
So let's indent that, and there we go. We have our suite of tests. Timo is writing, so you get refactoring, etc., and IntelliSense, but still can test it. Not sure what you mean by that. So instead of using verbatim strings, yeah, are you referring to the raw string literals? Because it's just a string, we can't do control dot and change and format it as C# code, because the Rosling tools, they assume now this is a string. They don't analyze it to be C# formatted string. So this is not parsed, if that's what you mean. But I guess I misunderstood you. Yes, I did. Oh, yes, I entered one message too late. Maybe write it in a file called test strings. Right. We could have a C# file that we then read from. Yeah.
Yeah.
And
That
from
would.
that, we could do that. But I really wanted to use raw string literals.
And also, obviously, they're going to be like real documents, hopefully at some point with
But
the
actually,
Mhm.
this would make it much more easier. Yeah, yes, it would indeed. But maybe this is now a segue for our integration tests, because for
Yeah.
integration tests, this is not just unit tests. We don't really have tests in place that we can run against a real project yet. So that's the hint, I guess, that we also need integration tests. Do we still have time to form at least one integration test?
If you write it, we definitely have time. If I write it, I don't know. We have to ask our our viewers.
Then
No, absolutely right. I'll help you. I'll be your eye, and
oh,
you'll be the
so let's
driving force.
because I guess now we need to create a separate test project for that.
Yeah.
So let's cd back into the test project, and now let's create a .NET. So this will be, well, we need an integration test project, but also, so the integration test project will be automating, but we also need a project under test. So let's say we have let's grab that name. Let's create a new .NET new XUnit, and instead of unit tests, let's call that integration tests. And how do we call the project that we test through the integration tests? Project under test? I'm not sure. This isn't the most elaborate name. But let's start with that. We can always change the name later. And let's go to the tests, to the project under test. And this is now actually, we can put the code that we have here now as actual documents. So we have our class one. Oops, I created this as unit test project. I didn't mean to. Okay, so let's have our class one, and my class one has, is this our final test? Yes. Has this string. Oops. There we go. No, yes, this is the my class one. Okay. This is the actual string. And let's also create a my class 2. Oops. .cs, of course, which has the second file. This way we can also now validate if that's valid C#. Everything turns green, so that's cool. And also the final string that will be wrong project. That's the right project. My class 3. And for the unit test, we have the integration test. So the integration test would also be the, how do we call it? The count, the using counter.
Yeah.
Using counter tests. And in our using counter tests, we test count. We have some actual project. So our scenario, I call it project under test. And the expected result should be find all occurrences.
Occurrences, yeah. I actually much prefer that to what we had earlier.
And the input this time would be, arrange, act, assert. The input this time would be a path to the project. Project path. Not sure if I'm getting the paths right now, but let's say we need to go back one project and then we go into the Visual Tool core project under test / project under test.csproj. So we pass in the project. We act that we have our, actually let's copy that from our unit tests. I think I grab actually all of it. Except the arrange phase. And we still count, but the input now is the project, and the result should be the very same. This doesn't compile now because we still have to link the projects and everything, but I'll do this as to refer the projects to each other, but I'll do this then off stream before checking in.
I have a question. The expected result, isn't that technically part of the arrange phase, not the act phase?
You're right. You're right.
Cool. So we did that wrong in all unit tests. I did it wrong. But never mind. We can also do it. We did, yes.
No, we found area of improvement.
Yes.
I'll go from the bottom. Would you like to go from the top?
Yes. Oh, no. Need to unfollow you first.
Oh, okay. In the act. I'm putting it below the documents.
Yes.
Between the documents and the act.
Nice.
And we have here one more expected result.
Okay, done.
And there we are. Cool.
Easy.
Cool. Timo's writing, I would assume those strings are going to be maintenance nightmare down the road. So personally, I would use the files anyway in the unit tests, compile it then to a DLL, and it will be extremely fast too. Yeah, so the test could read from the files. We could actually have that in the unit tests too, to not have these as an inline string, but actually have a document, and then we basically then have something like more or less file dot read all text, and then say, hey, I want my document for test1.cs or something. However, now what I like with the string inlining, I basically see it in one file. I see, okay, here they are. I can count manually and then see the result down there, and I don't need to divert to two documents. But as Timo says, yeah, right now we need to make sure that we write valid C# without having the compiler features. So there is a pro and con for both. Which one would you prefer?
Me?
To have the text, to have the documents in actual files that we then read in the unit test via, for example, file read all text, or have them inline as a string.
I'd have to, because what you're saying is right, that you can counter manually and then just see if the expected result is right. But you could also just have it side by side, like we
That's
often
right. Yeah.
code as well. Um, I mean, we can totally like try what it looks like in the text file. But also, I think maybe that's something for a future refactoring
Future
episode.
episode. Okay, I'll create a GitHub issue for that later, and then we can explore that in a future episode.
Sounds good.
I guess maybe we have to have some refactoring episode where we have a look at our current code and make it better, cleaner, nicer.
Yes.
Cool. Thank you very much, Timo, for your input and for your thoughts and discussion. Excellent. I'm looking at the cheat sheet. Have we achieved what we set our goal for today?
Our goal was writing unit tests, and we've written unit tests. So I would say so. We've even, I think, exceeded by writing an integration test that we haven't run yet, have we? Can we run that?
No, not yet, because still need to link the
Yeah.
projects and everything. But I'll do that.
Oh, yes.
Then
I
immediately
remember now.
afterwards, and we'll then check in the source code, so you can have a look at that if you wish. I'll also then put it out on Twitter and LinkedIn for you to observe what we did and perhaps maybe suggest what we did wrong or can improve in the next episode.
Yes, totally. As always, we're really, really happy about like feedback, any sort of feedback about the format, about our topics, about a project, about our actual code. Always constructive, please. Yeah, we always love sort of interacting with you guys. And again, for everybody who's been with us and been active and sort of helped us find mistakes and just went along on the ride with us. Thank you so much. It means the world to us. We love that.
It does. That's not an understatement at all.
Yeah. Cool. So, are you happy with our unit test? Are you happy with our outcome of today?
I am very happy because I think we covered well for the counting. I guess for the replacement, we'll follow with that up. Or should we? You know what? Let's have one single test for the replacement as well, so that we have a segue in our next episode. I'll just briefly let's actually. I'll grab the last test. Add myself a to-do. Move to separate file. But what the expected thing is, then we actually replace with global using. So and if we have this
the input, function, the method would this also be replaced?
Excuse me?
The count? Oh, you can't see.
Also, yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. It would be, how do we call it? Globalize?
Yes, globalize.
Globalize it is. So this will be our input. Actually, you know what? I'll copy a simpler test. I'll copy this test to make it a bit more apparent. I will then off stream then basically replicate all of the tests to have the same structure for these as well, for the globalized tests. So we feed this in as an input, and our expected result is now a new set of documents where we have, let's call this expected documents, with which let's say we want to replace the system using. So I'll get rid of all the system usings. This would now be the expected outcome, and our using counter is now the using globalizer, which globalizes. We pass in a set of documents and also the using that we want to replace or change to a global using, in our case, the system. And the result then will be actual documents, and we will be then comparing these. Okay. I just have to implement this to return basically what we expect as we did. But now we have to test. This is now the other aspect of the tool where we can act. Oh no, one part is missing. Of course, we need a new document. which now contains the global using system,
Nice.
because we actually need to generate that. I guess what we see here, that perhaps we still need to add maybe names to the documents and so on, but so I guess a list won't cut it. Maybe we need our custom type that we mentioned, but we
Yes.
can definitely do that in a future episode, or maybe in the refactoring episode. But for now, this is what we now expect: a new document that has the global using. So we extracted it from each and every file into the global one. And yes, with this will be now the segue to our next episode, because how to actually implement all of that, we will be using, of course, because it's my hammer and every problem looks like a nail to me, with Roslyn. And for that, we actually have a very special guest. We will have David Vengier on our show. He is a developer on the Roslyn IDE team at Microsoft. So we will be getting a good insight of how Roslyn works in general, and how we use the Roslyn APIs in order to make our implementation that we kind of expect now with the unit tests work.
I really,
And
yeah.
sorry, go ahead.
I can't wait for that episode. I'm really, really excited to meet him and yeah, to hear what he has to say.
And that will be on Sunday the 2nd at 10 o'clock UTC. We actually have a bit of a time zone obstacle to manage, because David is from Australia. Right now, I think we have a 10 hours difference. Austria will switch next weekend to
Yeah.
summertime, so we will move forward 1 hour. Australia is moving in 2 weeks back 1 hour, and then we only have an 8-hour difference. So now I also know that this is what I learned, that the DST switches also not go global in the same direction.
Yeah. I didn't know
I,
that either. That's so random.
I,
But
gue- I
also,
guess, is it because of the southern northern hemisphere thing? I may embarrass myself not publicly.
let's not do that.
Excellent.
But so it is a slightly short interval that we usually have. We usually have about 2 weeks, and this is, I think, slightly less. But if you still need more content while we're offline and while we don't stream, we have a couple of meetups to recommend to you as well. We're big meetup fans. They're super, super fun. You always learn something. And it literally, like, if you go to a meetup and Stefan learns something and I learn something, it's a good meetup, because I'm a complete noob. He's got, I don't know how many years of experience, and there's always something for everyone. So
Indeed.
highly, highly recommend them. Go check them out. What's the first one? Oh, Test Busters. I actually love the Test
Testbusters.
Busters. Yes, they're really, really
I'm
cool.
afraid
I can't make it this time, and I'm really, really gutted. But next time I'll be there as well, hopefully.
it's tomorrow, actually. I'm afraid I can't see the details because I'm not logged in. But I'm putting the link in the description for you to sign up. Then you see the link how to join that meetup. Then we also have the .NET Nuts group doing an online meetup about how to do event sourcing with Martin and PostgreSQL. Then also next week, we have, this is the meetup that I'm also co-organizing. We have at the .NET Devs AT, we have Purnima in our show to tell us more about minimal APIs. And I put all the links in the chat and later on in the description. And the last one before our 2nd of April live coding session is the .NET user group in Zurich. They do have a link to the YouTube channel online. They stream their meetup as well about, I totally forgot the topic. Dealing with concurrency in event sourced NoSQL product catalog. Okay, cool. And this will shorten the wait time until the 2nd of April.
Yes, totally.
Do you have anything left?
No, I don't think so. I don't know. Not on my cheat sheet. Maybe on
Cool.
yours.
then I guess it is never too late to subscribe. And if you like the video, then give it a thumbs up. If you have some suggestions, then please put them in the chat, put them in the comments. We'd like to improve. And now it's time to say we'll be back.